If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
It's been a while since we've had Josh on.
Yeah, it has. We had him on
like
a
year or two.
I like the guy. I grew up, I liked watching him fight back in the. He says he's going to fight again, maybe.
Good dude.
I know,
That's crazy,
right?
huh?
I thought he was going to fight you.
No,
In
no,
the episode,
no.
a couple times he alluded to that.
No, we're not going to. We're not going to do that.
Yeah,
he knows better.
Yeah,
Stupid.
He knows.
because you carry a gun.
It's because he's not in here right now.
Yeah, that's the reason.
Is he going to listen to this? By the way,
I hope.
Edit
not.
that out, Doug.
Yeah, watch out.
No, Josh is a great guy. He's working on his media. He's got a podcast. He's got a school in San Jose that he teaches kids and adults. He's a fucking cool dude. He's one of the most charismatic pro MMA fighters that I've met. Not a lot of them are super charismatic, but he's got that.
Yeah, he's got a lot of promise going forward with his commentating. Like if you guys have watched, he's doing a really good job over at Bellator. So yeah, no, he's doing big things.
Yeah, he's always exciting to watch when he used to fight because he's one of the more well-rounded fighters. Especially when he first started, the fighters weren't as well-rounded as they've become now, and he was one of the first guys to really come out there.
And he lays
thing.
it all out there too.
He does. He does.
His fight with Nate Diaz, one of my favorites.
That was an awesome one. So Josh Thomson can be found on Instagram at @TheRealPunk, and then his podcast. And of course, he talks a lot about mixed martial arts, the sports of mixed martial arts, on his podcast. The podcast is called Sammy and the Punk. It's really good. Go check that out. Before we get to the episode, I do want to remind everybody that this month Maps Anywhere is 50% off. So we redid the whole program, new blueprints, new videos, everything. And the program, we designed it for people to be able to do anywhere. That's why we call it Maps Anywhere. In other words, you don't need barbells, you don't need dumbbells, you don't need machines. All you need is your body and bands. And the challenge with training without equipment is how do you make a workout effective, especially as you become more and more fit. Like if you're really, really fit, how do you get the muscle stimulation? How do you get the endurance, the stamina, the strength without using lots of weights and machines? Well, we programmed it. We put it together specifically for people to get really good results. That program, brand new, is now half off, all month long, 50% off. Just go to mapswhite.com and use the code WHITE50, WHITE, number 50 without a space for 50% off. And if you have any questions on our other MAPS programs, we have programs for everybody. We have programs for beginners, intermediate, advanced, bodybuilders, athletes, people who work out at home, people who want to work out outside, whatever. We have a strongman program even. You can find the right program for your body. Just go to mapsfitnessproducts.com. And that's it. That's it with the commercial. So without any further ado, here we are talking to our friend Josh Thomson. It's funny with martial arts type studios, because I've done martial arts since I was a kid. And one thing that I noticed from the business side of them is they either succeed and do great, or a lot of them don't do well at all. And you're growing.
Yeah.
What makes a successful martial arts facility? Like, what do you do? Because the biggest one I can think of is like Ernie Reyes, facilities, and they had a chain of them, right?
But when you think of Ernie Reyes, what do you think of?
I think of like just Taekwondo. And,
yeah, but what comes with the members? What do you think of?
I definitely don't think MMA.
Like age-wise, you mean? Is that what you're
kids.
asking?
I'm just saying in general, kids.
Yeah, kids.
Yeah.
So my kids program is huge. We got close to like 70 kids.
There's way more business.
Way more. But then on top of it, and I should be giving out my secrets, but what I did was, because we are here locally, but what I did do though was I ran all of the workout classes simultaneously with the kids' classes, so the parents could work out at the same time.
Brilliant.
Fucking
So
brilliant.
what I said was, hey, if you drop your kid at 4:30 or for a 4 o'clock class, I have a 4 o'clock class.
Oh, that's
If
smart.
you drop your kid at 4:30, I got a 4:30 workout class.
So what percentage of the kids would you say their parents are also working out?
Well, so until I expanded, I didn't have that because I only had that one side to work with the parents. So as soon as I expanded to the other side, I was like, you know what? We never have a 4:30 fitness class. Let's add a 4:30 fitness class since we have the kids at 4:30. And so when that happened, I added the 4:30 fitness class. Now is the biggest class we have.
Oh, that's cool.
It's done. Dude, my gym is dead by 7 o'clock at night. So I'm home by 7:30.
Oh, it worked out
I
well.
love it.
That's cool.
And because I'm also in a community where there's all houses, and I'm sure I've got like 6 or 7 high schools or schools all around me.
I live right by you.
Yeah. So that's funny. I haven't seen it at my gym.
Yeah, interesting.
Interesting.
Or your kids. Yeah.
or your kids. So no, it's just we've got all the schools that are there, and we just market it to the kids. I mean, basically, we got lucky. We had a couple parents that came in and brought their kids, and then it just caught on like wildfire. I mean, obviously, it helped a little bit that people knew who I was, but once they realized that there's no fighters in the gym, I'm not trying to make fighters. I'm not trying to have your kid be a fighter, and that's the one thing I stress is. Even though I stress respect, which most martial arts places do, is I'm not going to put up with one kid picking on another kid. Just like even if you're a gray belt or an upper belt, you shouldn't be able to talk down.
Is that common?
Yeah, it is. It's totally common. Like you'll see that it's tendency for all coaches. They'll tend to favor their upper belts, and not just upper belts, but like you say, you have a track star who's like a star. You're going to be like, oh, I'm going to spend more time with that kid than I am that. It's common. The star running back or the star quarterback is going to always get more publicity than the offensive lineman. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
And so that's the one thing I don't do. I treat the 3 and 4 year olds, because we have 3 to 5 year old kids. So I treat all the 3 year olds even better than I treat my gray belts, because my gray belts, they should understand that, like, hey, that was you at one time. Right. When you came 4 years ago to me, that was you.
Yeah, and they also have more of a responsibility, I think, as you get better to teach and help with the coaching.
Every time I give them a stripe, I explain that to them. I say, with this stripe, you have a little bit more responsibility, whether that's leading warm-ups or whether that's helping and giving instruction to the kids. And also, too, what I do that some parents were like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool, is I break up all the upper belts and I say, okay, here's one. We have one or two upper belts. They work with all the 3 to 6, 3 to 7 year olds, and I say, okay, they have to learn how to open guard. So you go over there and you coach them. So I put like 4 or 5 kids with them, and they teach them how to open guard and pass guard. So it teaches them how to teach with kids. And then also the one reason why I did it was so they understand how impatient it is to be, like how patient you have to be to teach a kid who does not want to learn or just wants to play around and goof around, because that used to be them. When I used to say, hey, open guard, and you guys are like, oh, I don't want to do it. They're laying on the ground making snow angels, and you're thinking to yourself, man, like, why can't you get this? Like, stop goofing around and just do it. And now they understand. So I said, next time I tell you, hey, quit goofing around and do the move, you'll get it. That's what I have to deal with every day.
Did you take child psychology classes or anything like that?
No.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is because you're tapping into this, somewhat of a passion of mine. And what you're tapping into, by the way, it sounds like you coach, is some of the most effective ways to get children to learn. Like, for example, when you give a child responsibility, especially an older child or a more experienced child, when you give them the responsibility of younger kids or kids who are less experienced, it tends to bring out the best in them. All of a sudden, they feel like they have some authority, they have some responsibility. I got to do a good job. I got to teach, and they end up learning.
They learn their skill even more as a result.
Yeah, and that's what they find in education studies. And this is no different. And for me, as a parent, one thing that I loved about the martial arts more than anything was teaching them how to be good people and teaching them responsibility. So yeah, you can fight, but now you're more responsible. Yeah. You have this this ability now, but you're less likely to get into a physical altercation. You're more confident with yourself. So, what's the big difference between the success? Because you were a pro fighter, you're well known, but that's not why you're succeeding, because there's a lot of fighters who tried coaching and stuff and they're just not good. Were you just a natural working with kids?
Just to touch back on what you were just talking about, is I used to get in a lot of fights as a kid. And as I started learning how to wrestle better, and as I started learning how to train in jiu-jitsu and learning submissions, I used to, even up until I was like 19, 20 years old, I used to get in like street fights. And it's like, man, when I was 20 years old, I got signed by the UFC, and once I realized that I was fighting guys and I was training with people, teaching people at AKA, they were coming in that were adults, like, mid-20s or early 30s. And here I am, 20 years old, just rolling these guys up like quick. I mean, submission after submission after submission, right? And then you go out to a bar and now you're dealing with a drunk guy who's not sober. And you're thinking to yourself, why do I have to beat that guy up? Like, it would take me less time than it would to roll him up if he was sober. So that was like, to touch what you were talking about, that's exactly what it made me feel. It made me feel like, man, what are you doing? Like, you don't need to. You just
felt no threat.
Yeah, there's no threat. Like, when you go to a bar, there's not one threat in this room that scares me. Like, I walk in, I'm like, I can walk in with the confidence of knowing that it doesn't matter. Sure, you can beat me at tennis, you can beat me at golf, but I can beat you up. That
trumps everything.
That
right?
trumps everything, really. When you're talking about in the scheme of like, in the animal kingdom, like, hey, I can beat you up, like I can kill you. You know what I mean? Like that's what it comes down to. Like, it doesn't matter if you're better at tennis and golf and basketball. I don't give a crap. It doesn't matter.
And so you actually got in less fights.
So I pretty much haven't been in a street fight since.
Wow.
It's just a reality of once you understand that, you can click that in your mind that, while it's like you're wrestling in the Olympics and these guys are barely like, they're taking seminars at 3 and 5 years old when you think about it when you go to a bar. Mm-hmm. They're not even close.
Now, do you think that's common, or do you think some fighters are still battling like insecurities and they feel that they need to assert their dominance on people like that, or is it normal? Is it
every person is different?
Yeah.
I can't put a stereotype on everyone because there's different. Like I know there's guys that they hated fighting from the moment, but that was the best way for them to make a lot of money. Trevor Prangley, one of my best friends, he's from South Africa and he fought in the UFC, fought in all the biggest organizations in the world. He hated it. Every time he was fight, he was like nervous and just stressed and just hated fight camps and just hated it. But man,
just hella good at it.
Yeah, the guy made good money, man. He was ranked in the top 10 in the world for a while. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just got to do what makes sense and what makes you the most money.
Did you realize when you got to the point where you were training with all these fighters and you just didn't want to get in fights anymore, or at least you didn't get in fights anymore because you felt more confident? Did you realize that in the past, all the fights you got into, did you realize your role that you played? In other words, at the time where you think like, why are these people all fucking with me? And then you think back and be like, I wonder if I was.
No, I wasn't wondering. I knew.
Yeah.
I knew. There was never any doubt. I always said I didn't start it. I didn't throw the first punch, which I didn't, but I instigated to the point where someone wanted to throw the first punch. It was just, I was that kid. I would always say the meanest and harshest thing that I possibly could, to see if I get a rise out of you. That's kind of like how you get the nickname the Punk. There was a lot of different other things, like in the gym, I would say that I would do things. I mean, there, like Javier, if you listen to our, when we did a podcast with Javier Mendez on Sammy and the Punk, and he, and shameless plug, yeah.
We got
but no, it's but we with Javier said the same thing. He's like, hey, I would fight with Paul Bonatello and Mike Kyle, who were heavyweights and top guys in the UFC. Paul Bonatello fought for the UFC title, and I just threw the gloves off and just started throwing down with them in the middle of the ring, like because we got mad at each other. Mike Kyle, same thing. Mike Kyle and I got in a couple fist fights. Phil Baroni and I, full on fist fights.
Really?
Like no gloves. Like let's fucking get after it. That was us.
Oh wow!
Like it didn't matter. I mean, like it was. That's how we are. That's how it was. That's how I am.
But then hugging it out and having a beer afterwards.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Baroni lived with me at the time. So it's like I had to drive him home to my house. So here we are. We throw the gloves off. We're throwing down. We're yelling and cussing at each other, throwing blows at each other. And we get done. He's like, all right, bro. See you later. Okay.
So you figured it out.
Yeah. We got it. We got it.
What's for dinner?
Yeah. Shower, get changed. Like, he'd go up and take a shower and come back down. He's like, all right, you ready to go? Yeah, I'm ready to go.
It's fun. It's funny because you are, you have that fighter instinct. You're definitely, a tough guy, but then you seem to thrive working with children. Yeah. Did you always know that you had a knack for that? Where'd that come from?
Honestly, I could tell you that it comes from probably like I helped raise my brother and sister. I have a younger brother, younger sister. And, my parents were young when they had me. They were 19 and 20 years old. And that was kind of, I think I wouldn't say it was normal back then, but it was a little bit more common than like now these days. It's like 32 to 35 is when people are having kids now. But back then it was, my parents were still kind of living the younger lifestyle. They would leave me to watch my brother and sister. I was like 6 years old. They would like, okay, we're going to go out. Boom. I'd be gone. They'd go out and hang out and come back home. People would all come back to the house at like 2 a.m, hang out until 5 a.m, that kind of thing. It was just different. It whatever. I'd wake up, make breakfast for the kids, pancakes.
So you just learned all those skills growing up.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I was hungry, there wasn't any cereal. You got to learn how to make pancakes.
Were you like latchkey kids too? Like when you come home and like your parents weren't there, you just come home and have a key?
Yeah, we always had, we didn't have a key. We had the back slider was almost always open. Yeah, so we had a little side gate. I'd jump the side gate and then I'd walk in the house. The back door was always open.
Dude, that used to be that was the era though. Yeah. That was like at the time, like kids would just walk home from school. It was, it was just safe. Like it seemed safe anyway.
Which I think it's more safe now than it was back then.
It is.
Right.
It's just because social media and internet. I mean, like the internet and the social media, I think everyone just knows and hears about it now. I mean, we get an Amber Alert on the phone. One kid was kidnapped, 2 weeks ago and you're like, Everyone got it. We all of a sudden you're in a restaurant, right? Everyone's like, everyone's picking up their phone.
Well, do you find too, like, so if these kids enrolling, do they have different motivation than maybe they did when, we grew up in terms of like going through martial arts?
No, I think it's just the martial arts has evolved. MMA, mixed martial arts. I mean, you would call like there's not just one discipline that they have to learn now. And you take someone like myself who comes from a wrestling background, played sports his whole life. And I was on team sport and I was an individual sport, which I think is probably the most key thing is you teach kids how to work with other kids by playing a team sport, which I played soccer. I was on a traveling team, traveled all around the U.S. and played. But then I was also on an individual sport where I traveled all around and just wrestled individually. I was still part of a team, still had a coach. But it's when you walk out on that mat, it's just you. And for me, there was nothing better than doing that. Because even though I would have loved to have played at a higher level in college for soccer, because there wasn't as much pressure on me, and it was more fun to socialize and be around everyone playing soccer. But the actual reward for me to become who I am today was definitely because of wrestling and because of mixed martial arts. Without a doubt, I'm doing it by myself. I mean, there's nothing better than knowing that you've done something, you've achieved something on your own. You didn't need, sure, you have coaches, but at the end of the day, your coaches can't make you get on a treadmill and run. At the end of the day, sure, they can hold mitts for you, but they can't make you push yourself. And you got to want that.
So you were driven.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you see this in the kids that you coach, that you take your classes? Can you identify the kids like, okay, he's going to be good?
Yeah, how early of an age can you tell if a kid's going to be a badass?
You can tell pretty early. Here's the thing is, I tell parents, like, I look at how the kids learn based on what goes on at home. And that lets me know if your kid's having a hard time absorbing things, if your kid's not paying attention in class, that's a parenting issue. That's not a coaching issue. That has to do with like, hey, that should be taken care of at home. I don't care if your kid's won 50 medals for me. That doesn't mean anything to me. I care if your kid pays attention and works well with the other kids and listens and absorbs what I'm trying to teach. That's important to me, because later on down the road, having a coachable kid is more important. That's how the kid succeeds in life. If you can't be coached, odds are you probably won't be as successful as you could have been later on.
Regardless of how
talented you are.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because I have a kid right now who is he's a phenomenal athlete. He's a workhorse, but he only likes to train live. So when he trains live, he's good. He's intense. He can beat a lot of the kids. But then he's been doing that now for the last 2 years. But now the kids that he was smashing, for the last 2 years, they have finally adjusted and their technique has gotten better, and they don't have to try as hard to stop what he's doing because of his athleticism, and they can just use technique and beat him. And that now is like an eye-opening to him. And I've told him, I said, you need to slow things down and you need to focus on your technique, because you're getting to an armbar position. Sure, I'm getting to a mount position, but you don't know how to finish it. You don't know how to finish it because you haven't spent the time to learn the technique and the proper transitions to get there. Whereas these other kids, they get you to mount and they finish you. You get to mount. Sure, you got them there because you muscled them over and threw them down and ragdolled them around, and now you're on top. But you don't know how to finish. You don't know how to finish because you don't know the technique to get there.
How old is this kid?
He's 8.
8 years old?
Yeah. I mean, I put more pressure on him because he is, like, you need to put pressure on those kids.
Sure.
The ones that have the most athleticism are the ones you have to be the hardest on because they're going to skate through life thinking that they're the best.
Well, because especially when things come easy to you, then you think, oh, this is all the effort I need to put in. They don't get challenged from their competition. So many times it's their coach or their parent that has to teach them how to challenge themselves. Yeah. I've had salespeople like that who work for me where they were so good that they could put half the effort and outperform everyone else. And so I had to find ways to motivate them to challenge themselves because it wasn't from their peers. They already blew them out the water. So I had to teach them how to motivate themselves. That could be a very, very tough thing to do. So now you said you got more space and you have a whole podcast and media studio thing. What's the goal with all this? What are you doing with it?
So we originally just started it. I started with Sammy and this guy named Sam Diggity from 102.5 KDON. He's the morning show. He runs the Morning Madhouse.
All right.
So him and I were just talking, and he was like, hey, he knew fighting for a lot of years. He was watching me fight. Him and I met when I did a couple appearances down on his show to help sell some of my fights. And so him and I just started chatting. He's like, why don't we try doing this? I have the studio here. I used to drive down to Salinas and film in the studio there, once a week and film. But then when I came and done your guys' show, you guys were like, yeah, we're filming as many times as we can. We're getting as much content as we can. I'm like, yeah, I'm not driving to Salinas, 5 days a week. You're out of your damn mind. So we did, though. And then I found Producer Dave, which I call Producer Dave. But Dave and I, we used to drive down for almost over a year, right? Yeah, it was over a year. Him and I used to drive down every Monday, and we'd film talking about whatever the fights were and, and just shooting the shit. And it just slowly, I'd say in the last probably 6 months, like we had like 0 subscribers on YouTube and all these, iTunes and all these other things. Then once we hit 1,000, it slowly grew to like 2,000. And then once we hit 2,000, it grew to 4,000 real quick. And then now we're kind of been stuck at around 7,000, 6,500, something like that. So it's the YouTube is the iTunes and stuff is growing pretty well, but it's hit or miss, obviously, talking about whatever it is you're talking about. Yeah. You guys
what's been performing the best so far?
So anything to do with like Conor McGregor, Khabib Nurmagomedov,
of course.
AKA, anything to do with AKA, DC.
Because you have a lot of insight there.
Yeah, I do have it. And that's the one thing that scares me because I've got so much insight on the AKA. But the issue is that what happens when all those guys are gone? I mean, Kane's 36, DC's coming, he's 39, he'll be 40. I mean, I'm pretty much, Rockhold lives in Florida now. And sure, him and I text and talk all the time. But it's what happens when all of us are gone? Like that generation of us guys are gone, And so there'll be Khabib left, Islam Makhachev, and then there's a couple other younger guys that are really talented are coming up. But there's a lot of things that we gotta, you gotta make sure you focus on. You gotta focus on the whole sport. You can't just focus on what's in front of you.
How many shows are you guys airing a week now?
We're just doing one a week, but then I started doing one on Sundays now called Punk's Opinion, where I give my opinion based on whatever the latest drama is in the sport.
Oh, that's good.
So yesterday we talked about Ben Askren coming over from.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah,
we talked about Ben Askren coming over from ONE FC, and. And so I talked about that, and then the trade for Demetrius Johnson. So those two things we talked about, as well as and then the 125 division being either wiped out or not.
Yeah, that's the word, right? That they might get rid of it.
How does a trade work? Explain that. How do they trade? How do they trade athletes like that?
How do you trade NFL athletes?
Yeah. It's the same thing.
Same exact thing.
Really?
I want your athlete. You want mine. Let's talk about which one's better, and let's negotiate. Money. And then remember, sometimes there's money attached to that as well, not just a trade.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
I mean, with them, I think it was just a straight trade because they could care less about the 125-pound division, and they never liked Demetrius Johnson to begin with, and they don't like Ben Askren either.
Yeah, why don't they like Ben? He's a fucking machine.
Yeah, he's a machine. Yeah. But I want everyone to remember, and I said this yesterday. Once you guys watch Ben Askren fight. Halfway through that fight, you guys be like, now I know why you guys didn't watch this fight.
Is he, is he a blanket?
He's a blanket, and he's always been a blanket. I mean, and here, the story on him, and I've trained with DC, and DC said, like, look, it wouldn't make a difference on the Olympic team. If that guy locked his 2 fingers like this, he's taking you down.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a difference. So if he gets his 2 fingers locked on you around your leg, he's taking you down. And that's that kind of animal he is. I mean, you can't knock his wrestling. That's never been the knock. The knock is that he's really good on the ground jiu-jitsu wise, but he don't go for finishes. So everyone's like, yeah, he's coming. Yeah, he's coming. Until about the second round, people are like, man, F this guy. Watch. They're gonna be thinking that, like, man, I can see why he didn't come.
Right,
I can
see why the sport really evolved more into an entertainment aspect to it.
Yeah. So the one thing that has me thrown off, and I want to know is how are they going to bring? They're going to bring him over, and then he fights. He coaches Tyron Woodley at the 170-pound division. How is he going to coach T Wood and still become champion at 170 if T Wood's the champion now? So what's going to happen? Someone brought this up to me yesterday, and I was talking with them about it, and they said, what's going to happen, I think, is that they're going to create that 165-pound division like we've all said they were. So Conor has a place to be champion. And then they will make a 175-pound division, and they'll either Ben or T Wood will go in either direction. So they'll split them up, so that gives them an opportunity to face Khabib or to face Conor or to face whoever. But it gives Conor a chance to be a champion somewhere, and it gives Khabib to be a champion somewhere, and then it gives T Wood and Ben to be a champion somewhere. It gives them a chance. But I'm telling you now, as soon as Ben Askren loses, the hype will be gone. People are going to hate him. They're going to hate him. They're going to hate everything about him. He runs his mouth really well, but once he loses, everyone's going to come out of the woodwork. Man, we knew you fucking sucked.
Right.
We knew
because
we
right
knew
now
you
there's a
were
lot
garbage.
of mystique around the guy.
Oh yeah, can he beat the best? Can he beat the best? He's been champion everywhere he went. You know,
and it is true when he gets his hands on you, you're gonna get taken down.
Yeah,
you can't stop his game.
Yep.
It seems that way at least. For me, when watching the sport and realizing, you know, that it's the shit talk, the entertainment, the excitement that generates the big fucking dollars, and the people that consistently win sometimes. Like Demetrius, you know, the guy's a fucking legend, but he's just not exciting, doesn't talk a lot of shit, not a big draw. Do you think that we're really getting the best fighters now, or do you think that now it's starting to just become the best entertainers? Yeah.
No, we're getting the best entertainers. That's what we're getting. If you wanted the best fighters, right? If Ben wanted to fight the best fighters, Scott Coker offered him a chance to fight in the Bellator tournament, which Roy McDonald's already beat Tyron Woodley. He just beat him recently. That was Tyron Woodley's last loss was Roy McDonald. So if you wanted to fight the best fighters, why would you go somewhere where you've already beat, where the guy that lost is not there anymore? The guy that beat Tyron Woodley, to beat the champion there, he's not there anymore. He's in Bellator. He got offered to be put in that Bellator tournament. So Scott Coker was talking from Bellator to ONE FC about using Ben Askren, not buying him, but using him for the tournament. That's risky on a promoter's standpoint to go ahead and put him in a welterweight tournament with all of his best welterweights, saying like, "Hey, you lend me him, and he can fight Roy McDonald the very first fight." That's risky,
Sure.
you know. But Scott went out on a limb and did it, and Ben turned it down. So why would you turn that fight down?
Yeah, I think
That's
money, right? He wants more money. He wants more.
50 Cent put $1 million on the welterweight tournament.
Oh,
the
really?
winner gets $1 million. That's not counting their fight purses.
I did not
So
know
they
that.
get their fight purses plus the winner gets $1 million.
Oh wow.
Why wouldn't somebody then?
Yeah.
I have no idea. No idea why. I think honestly he was the
Scared of
Bellator
losing?
champion before. He was the Bellator champion before, and he was the ONE FC champion. I think now the only organization he hadn't fought in was the UFC. I think he wanted to go there.
He's got his eyes
which is
on it.
fine. Yeah. You know?
Why do you think the UFC has such I guess, why do you think they have such a stranglehold over this image of that's where the best fighters are, that's where you need to go? Because turn down $1 million and to turn down, like you're saying, some of the best fights ever so that he can go to the UFC. Why do you think that's
They're
happening?
the original. That's the hard. I think any promotion that comes in is going to have a hard time. They're the original. You know, it's going to be hard. I think to unseat them at any time. Doesn't matter. I think Bellator has an opportunity, but man, let's be real. They've got a long ways to go. You know, I'm a big Bellator fan. I work for Bellator. I work for Viacom. I work for these guys doing commentary for them and stuff. I have a contract with them for fighting. But to be honest, let's be real. I mean. And we've said this, and I'm a huge Bellator fan. I love it. I love being there. But if you take a look at what Conor did in his last weigh-ins, I mean, they had 12,000 people there, 10,000 people there.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You know, I mean, in Bellator in San Jose, we had 14,000 people that came to the fights. I mean, you're talking about at a weigh-in for them, for Conor McGregor,
right?
You know, and the whole fight. Is, you know, it's different. And sure, weigh-ins are, I want to say that the weigh-ins are free or they're like, I don't know, maybe they cost money. I've never paid to go, but you know what I mean? We've got a long ways, there's a long ways to go. But let's not be mistaken, when you look at the actual figures and the numbers of what Bellator does viewership-wise and what Fox Sports 1 does viewership-wise, they're pretty much neck and neck. You know, when we're talking, and I would say Bellator's actually beat them a couple times, and not just a couple, but you know, they're swaying more towards, because on the regular Bellator cards, they're getting top name guys to fight on the regular Bellator cards, whereas on Fox Sports 1, you're getting, you know, maybe one fighter that's a champion, and then the rest of the cards kind of garbage. You know, on the Fox Sports 1's cards, even their Fox cards aren't doing all that well.
Now, there's two sides here, right? There's the business side guy. You understand what's going to get people to want to buy tickets, what's going to get people to watch, and then there's probably the purist fighter inside you that wants to see the best fighters and the best fights. And like for the business side, what do you think that these organizations have to do to really succeed? Like, what's your opinion? And then what would the fighter side of you like to see?
Well, I mean, let me reverse it. Like, what would you prefer to see?
I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I like ground stuff, but I'm totally different from most Americans. Like, most Americans get bored when people are on the ground for too long.
Yeah,
I love that.
I would think 80% of the people just want the drama. I think that's what they look for. I mean, I think that's why Conor is such a big name in
the hype and all that.
I think it's the soap opera of it, right?
What do you want to see?
It's sort of a hybrid of both. I mean, I pay attention to a lot of the shit talking, but for the most part, Like, I want to see real striking techniques, and I want to see somebody that's legitimately like the best.
Yeah, see, you guys are the everyday casual fan.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever it is you guys want to see is what the rest of the rest of the world wants to see.
Yeah.
Like for me, I could give two shits about rankings. I want to see the best fight. Like if you watched the Rory McDonald and Douglas Lima fight for Bellator, that's the type of fight I want to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see that fight. I want to see two guys where there's no quit in them and just gamers. The Dan Henderson Shogun fight.
Yeah.
That was, that's the fight you want to see.
Yeah,
you know, the Josh Thomson Gilbert Melendez fights.
Yeah,
I mean, those are the fights I want to see. I want to see fighters like that. You know, even though I lost to Tony Ferguson, that's the type of fight I want to see. I want to see a guy who I got destroyed in that fight, got cut up nasty. But there was never a moment I was like, man, this sucks, I should quit. You know what I mean? Those are the fights you want to see. You want to see those fights. You want to see fighters that there's always a moment for them to win. Look at Derek Lewis. He got his title shot against DC, even though he didn't win the title shot, because he fought Volkov and he was getting his ass kicked.
Yeah,
he lost last 10 seconds of the fight.
That might have been one of the greatest cards I'd ever seen. That was one of the greatest cards.
That's my point. My point is, like, I want to see those kind of fights. I want to see a guy who there was never a moment that he thought, man, I want to quit. No way, man.
And many times when you're matching fighters up, are you looking at their styles that will ensure that that's going to be something like that? Or what are the things that you would look at when you're matching fighters up to ensure that you get a fight like that?
So I look at a lot of I look at styles of who would be the best to compete against each other. Like, let me give an example. I'll look at what's kind of what Scott Coker does, exactly what Scott Coker does. And I know I'm leaning more towards the Bellator thing because I followed Scott for so many years. But Paul Daly wasn't ranked or in the ranking to even fight Nick Diaz. But that ended up being probably the most exciting first round fight I've ever seen in my whole life. They fought, and it's like when you see that fight and you're part of that fight, that to me it's insane to watch Nick Diaz and Paul Daly. At the time, they weren't really scheduled. They weren't supposed to fight each other in the ranking system. But they knew it was going to be a great fight, and it was probably the greatest one-round fight I've ever seen in my life. I mean, most exciting. That was right when the UFC had bought Strikeforce, and you had Lorenzo and Dana and everyone like sitting on the cage side. They were up out of their seats, like, man, this is insane. I mean, my honest opinion is that the UFC they could have done what everyone originally wanted them to do. Is you had two different promotions, and they could have built up two different promotions, had two different sets of champions, and then eventually at the year end had like a year-end show or champion versus champion.
Yeah,
like they could have done that because they're having
that would have been smart. I think. Look at professional sports with
national and like American League or something like that.
Exactly, to see who's the best.
They already had this. They already had the proof that the guys in Strikeforce sold. You had DC, you had T. Wood, you had Marquardt, you had myself, you had Gilbert Melendez. Sure, you could have intermixed a couple of the under-ranking guys to fight the champions on each side every once in a while, or maybe the number one contenders, and said like, hey, you could at least be a champion on that side. People want to see, outside of Conor McGregor, people want to see champions. Like, no one gives a crap if Conor McGregor has a title or not.
Sure.
They just want to see him fight.
Sure.
They want to see the promo and the lead up and the drama, right? Like this guy right here. They want to see all the drama and all the BS coming up to it. That's what they want to see. They don't want to see the rest of them. The rest of them, they want to know like, hey, what title's on the line.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter for him.
Yeah, I think that would be a very smart strategy because you'd see one guy as a champion, another guy who's a champion. So now, the build up to that would be amazing.
Can you imagine a year-end show every year where champion versus champion?
No, that'd be amazing.
I mean, like that would be like, Japan, Pride used to do their year-end show every year, and they still do it, and it's huge, man. I mean, like we're talking 30, 40, 50,000 people in an arena.
Yeah,
it's nuts. It's crazy.
It's like, that's a strategy that's worked for a long time for sports events. Even pro wrestling did that for a long time, where you'd have the intercontinental champion and the world champion, and they're going to go together, and it's champion. I mean, everybody loves seeing that. That's a smart strategy.
And they had already had the format that worked. I mean, they could have just left Scott Coker in place, could have kept him on, and never have to worry about him being your competitor. They could have had Rich Chow, who was the matchmaker for them, and just kept doing what they're doing and plugging away, trying to sign talent. Because you know how many? Then that would have ensured no other promotions like ONE FC would ever have a chance. And they own the rights to both of them now. that. You know, like they had the chance and the opportunity to do that, and I think they just wanted to shut it all down and make one.
Just do it all one.
Yeah.
What's the vibe like at Bellator with UFC? Is there a lot of shit talking that goes on behind the scenes? Are you guys not big fans of UFC, or what do you guys?
No, there's actually no negative vibe at all. Like and the same thing was with Strikeforce. All Scott did was bring the same people that worked for Strikeforce over to Bellator.
Okay.
And just said like, hey, you know, we're just going to create this family atmosphere and this vibe, and we still have all the same employees we had from Strikeforce, and we're just starting from the bottom now, you know, and we're going to work our way back up. You know, it took 6-7 years for Strikeforce to get to that level, and here we are, I think, in year 4, coming up on year 4 now, and it's getting there. It's just going to take some time. You know, everyone forgets, like, you know, the other thing as well is, even though he's with Paramount Network and that new fight app called DAZN, even though they're on there, which is good, but they're still, I think they still need to make sure that they get into some sort of like mainstream TV, just for a couple big fights, you know, whether it's Showtime, whether it's CBS, whether it's, who knows, maybe even Fox, you know, because the UFC's gone. They, you know, at the end of the year, they're gone. They're going to be on ESPN, which I think is going to be, which I don't think is a good idea for them.
That's interesting.
Really? How come?
Yeah. Well, because if you think about it, right, ESPN, who watches ESPN? Not fight fans, but sports people. And if you actually listen to ESPN, their commentary guys, like
they don't know.
They have no idea what's going on.
Well, who are they going to bring in?
They have no clue.
Like DC and some.
Well, DC will be part of it, I'm sure. But from what I understand, DC's going to probably stay with Fox, covering football and wrestling.
Oh, really?
And all the other things. Yeah, his deal.
He has mainstream appeal.
Yeah, he's very mainstream. I got to tell you, man, he's the best in the business. I mean, and I'm not trying to be biased. But I truly think he's phenomenal, man. Like he's ready to go to the next level. He can cover football, he can cover basketball, he can cover obviously wrestling.
Well, you're just getting started too, man.
Yeah,
tell me a little bit about
just getting started. I'm excited, man. We just I just signed a 3-year deal with Viacom. So
did you?
Yep. So we'll doing commentary for them. I still have fights left on my contract with Bellator. There is a chance that I may fight. We're waiting on one fight to potentially progress, but we'll see what happens on that.
Awesome. Would you be excited to fight again?
No. no, but there is one fight I'd like to run it back, and you know, we may see that fight again. So we'll see.
So I have a question for you. So something that I used to love about one thing that I loved about MMA. I was a kid when the first UFC came out, and I don't remember how old I was, but my dad ordered it on pay-per-view, and I'm watching it. I knew nothing about. What I believe true about martial arts was what I saw in movies. So like the flashy dude with the 6-pack, the rip guy or whatever is going to kick everybody's ass.
Bruce Lee.
And we all know that, you know, Royce Gracie beat everybody on that one. He's this kind of skinny Brazilian dude. And we always we see that a lot of times in MMA, like Fedor. You know, if I saw Fedor on the street or at the beach with the shirt off, or DC, thickness. Yeah, I'm like, they don't look. The guy's not that ripped, but they beat the shit out of you.
Yeah.
So it almost makes you question: can you tell by looking at someone if they're a badass? You're a fighter. Are there things that you can see in someone? Because for the average person, it's so hard. You just see someone who's ripped and you think they can fight, but that doesn't mean shit a lot of times.
I think what we talked about earlier, I think it's the confidence. When someone walks into the room, you see the confidence in them, their demeanor, their personality, their willingness to engage with other people, not afraid of anything that happens. Because like I said, you know, you can beat me at tennis and golf, but I can beat you up. So when you walk into a room, you have that sense of confidence. I'm like, it doesn't matter what goes down right now. Unless someone whips out a gun or a knife, we're good, bro. Like I can have
So you
fun
can
in here.
sense that when you see someone.
You know, and like DC, he walks in a room, he's just electric. You know, Kane, he's a little bit more humble, he's quiet, kind of comes in, but you look at Kane, he looks like a fighter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not
saying
that he's ugly, but he just has that like, you know, he has that like, hey, go ahead, say something. But he's
He'll
so
smash your face
nice,
with his
man.
head.
I don't know if I see them big cauliflower ears. That's normally a sign for me.
That's an easy one.
That's some years of rolling around to get the ears that fucked up.
It is, but I mean, DC doesn't have cauli.
Right.
So it's like one of those things where you're like, man, DC doesn't have
You would
cauliflower.
never know if
Yeah,
he met
you would-
DC. He's
No.
like this jolly.
No, I've ran
you
into
know.
him multiple times. He's always out and about in San Jose, and he doesn't. He's not very tall either,
Nope.
so he's not like this crazy. Not Kane's a big boy. Like you get around
Yeah.
Kane, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
you know what? You wouldn't. He's got a head like this big. You know what I'm saying?
Kane's like 6'1", around 6'1", just thick like a tree trunk, you know. DC, he's big too, but I mean, like he's shorter. He's like 5'10", you know. Him and I are about the same height. And so when you see him, you're like, man, you don't look that big. But I mean, like you don't look like.
But he'll give you some frequent flyer
and yet-
miles.
DC's always smiling though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
super happy guy. How much respect you got for him coming out and whooping on old boy on the last one?
I mean, I do. I mean, but things I think he knew. He weighed the measurements. Okay, pay me this much money. Right. All I got to do is wrestle. I've been wrestling my whole life. Getting in good enough shape to wrestle. I mean, his hand was broken all through camp. He didn't really strike with it at all. He didn't spar. He didn't use it. Didn't do anything. He wanted to make sure it was healed as much as it could have possibly been healed before the fight. I mean, he's just looking to the Brock fight. I pretty much I would think that he's going to be done after the Brock fight.
Now, do you guys?
Is that for sure?
Do you feel like you guys have this ability? So. Like, how often are you like right on when you can take a guy? Like, how often do you look at a fight? Like, DC looked at that fight and knew, like, I know I can do a little bit of cardio the next couple of weeks. I'm in good enough shape. I'm not even scared.
Yeah.
Can you normally tell, like, if you got a guy, and how often is it that somebody surprises another fighter?
Well, it's the fight game, and that's why we fight the fight. You never know. Like you don't know what's going to happen until you get in there. All it takes is one punch. Mm-hmm. With Derek Lewis, we saw that in his fight before that. All it took was one punch. So it's hard to say that this fight will end. I can finish this fight any way I want, because you don't know if the guy lands a clean shot.
Well, everybody has the shooter's luck or the lucky punch that could potentially happen. But there's got to be guys that, based off of your skill set, and you see their skill set where you just know, like, oh, it doesn't matter. He's not a match for me. Worst case scenario, I know I can get him down, and he's not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah, that would be the fight that I would say that was the Derek Lewis fight. But I mean, when you think about it, I mean, like we saw in his, like I said, going back to his last fight, you just never know. It just takes one thing. Here's the thing: if you watch what DC with John Jones, their last fight.
Yeah,
I was like, man, I had DC winning the fight. I was 2 or 3 rounds to none, but then he got clipped a little bit with the head kick. It was like, wobbled him, and then the fight was over. Mm-hmm. It only takes that. Even though I felt like DC was winning the fight, it doesn't make a difference, man. Like, it just takes, like, you get carried away, lackluster. You're thinking you're controlling the fight, and the fight's over. You wake up and you're like, man, what happened? That's what happened. That's exactly what happened.
Who was the most surprising fight for you that you got in the ring that you were like, oh shit, this dude
wasn't expecting that?
I would say Tony Ferguson.
Yeah.
It was just different. Like, he reminded me a lot of Mike Swick, like kind of bony, wiry, and it just had that strength. He wasn't strong. That's the one thing with Tony. He wasn't physically strong, but man, he had huge hands. So like when we shook hands at the weigh-ins and his hand like wrapped all the way around mine, it makes a difference. So when he pulled me into his guard and he got wrist control and I couldn't get my hand back. And most people I can roll out, but I couldn't. I was like trying to roll out of there and I couldn't get to that position and just felt like you couldn't get your hand back. I was like, man, this sucks. I mean, he threw me off. Everything he did threw me off. He threw the push kick. I was like, those don't look hard. But I blocked 5 or 6 of them. And then I woke up the next day, my forearm was swollen. Those of you guys that are watching on YouTube, my forearm was swollen from my elbow to my wrist. It was like probably a mound. I would say at least 3 or 4 inches thick. It swelled up so bad. I thought maybe I fractured. I went to the doctor, and they're like, "No, you just have a severe bone bruise." Which bone bruise is like little microscopic fractures. Yeah. But still, it was just like, man, this sucked.
What do you do after these fights? What do you do to recover? You just lay in bed and just
every
rest?
Fight's different, man. Every fight's different. With the second Gilbert Melendez fight, I couldn't lay down because I had lumps all over my head. So I had to sleep. I had to sleep with a neck roll pillow for 3 nights. I slept with a neck roll pillow sitting up in my couch.
Damn.
Yeah, I had to sleep like that. So I put all the pillows around me, and I was like, make sure I was comfortable, and I just had a neck roll pillow, and I just slept sitting up.
Now, do you guys talk to each other afterwards? You're like, hey, bro, you fucked me up.
Man, we Gilbert and I had a couple conversations afterwards. It was just tough fights, man. Like Tony Ferguson, I had cuts all over, so I had to change all the sheets on my bed because I had white sheets, so I had to change them all to the dark sheets. So it's like because I had cuts. I want to say I had 24 stitches here on my forehead here up. I had 2 Mercedes-Benz like cuts right here in the front of my head. So I think I had like another 14 and 12 stitches on each side.
Damn.
Yeah, and then I had a cut on the bridge of my nose. It was like 2 stitches. I mean, I got cut up pretty bad in that fight. If you watch a lot of his fights, that's what he does. Yeah. So he tries to grab and he elbows really well. He's real bony and he's an elbow man. So it's just hard to deal with, something different to deal with, and the length and the reach kind of threw me off. Tough guy, man. Really tough guy.
I remember when I was, the few fights I've been in as a kid, I remember I never felt anything till after. Does that happen for you as well? Are you in the fight and you're like, oh shit, I'm getting cut? Or is it afterwards you're like, what the hell happened to me? I didn't even feel that stuff.
No, I mean, honestly, the forearm in the Tony fight, I felt that. Couple knots in the head with the Gilbert fight, I felt those a little bit. But no, you really don't feel a whole lot. Mm-hmm. The very first Gilbert fight, I threw a couple kicks, and I kicked his elbow, and I went to like plant my foot after I kicked his elbow, and I could feel the pain, and like kind of caused me to like shuffle my feet, like, ooh, that hurt. Mm-hmm. But other than that, you just kind of try to work through it. Mm-hmm. All the real hard things that you feel, you don't really feel, because you're either knocked out or you're wobbled.
Sure.
And you don't feel those. Mm-hmm. So
those are a surprise.
Yeah, the adrenaline that's going, you don't feel it. The only time you'll really feel it is when you won't feel it, but what you'll know is you got hit with a good shot, because all of a sudden, like, the lights get dim, or you start to vibrate, your body starts to vibrate, you got hit with a clean shot. You'll feel like, oh wow, that was different. Like, you don't feel as much control of your body at that moment.
That's got to be a skill that you learn just through fighting, where if you get hit, how to react and respond while you're a little bit hurt. Because one of the biggest, criticisms of martial arts in the past has been, if you don't train full contact and you actually get hit, you don't know what to do, because you never experienced that. How do you learn that process of getting hit and knowing how to react? Is it just through...
Let me ask you this: does that translate to football also?
It might, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, that's my they moved football to one paddock practice a week, and now we see guys just getting laid out and knocked out in fight in games, right? So like, instead of just getting like a concussion and still being able to play, now they're just getting annihilated. Guys are like, arms are going stiff, they're shaking, toes are pointed out, and I was telling, and who was I telling? I was telling somebody the other day. I said, they move to one padded practice a week with really no contact, and then they get in the game, and they go as hard as they possibly can at each other. And then what do you think is going to happen?
It's worse.
It's worse. I mean, to me, I feel like it's worse. Now you're getting legitimately knocked out.
That's an interesting theory. Yeah.
So
there's a skill to getting hit, man.
Yeah, as much as I would like to say that dumb Oklahoma drill where they ran right into each other and tried to win, in football, that's the same thing as that what fighters do when we call sparring. Right. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. We get out there and we spar. And and we punch each other in the face to get our body used to the movements, how to roll with the punches, how to absorb the contact, and how to come right back and throw something right back. Mm-hmm. So not only do you hit me, but I roll with it, I move, and I throw right back to try and land something on you. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, football players, I feel like they've gotten away from that, so they stopped learning how to take the shots. They stopped learning how to tackle. They stopped learning how to just absorb that type of punishment, and their body's not used to it. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you for instance is when I don't train or I don't spar for say, a month or two, or like after one fight to the next, and the first 2 weeks or first week and a half I'm sparring, my forehead is all like super sore, and I wear headgear, and I'm doing light sparring with some guys, but I've been hit so many times now all of a sudden my forehead hurts. Like little pain, like it's like just little bruises all around your eyes, all around your cheekbones. Your chin kind of hurts. Your neck is a little stiff from taking the shots, and that's only like say a month and a half of not taking any punishment. So what do you think is going to happen with football players? They never take any punishment. Like they're playing touch football during the week.
Oh yeah, they've pretty much eliminated it.
And then they get into the game, and then they wonder what's going on. How come the guy's getting concussions? Oh, we got to make the sport safer.
Right.
I mean, you got to train.
It is an interesting point.
It's an interesting.
Because I felt that going through camp and everything, it's like you needed those shots. You needed to feel that feeling, so that way, you could respond and also breathe, and recover on top of that.
Well, isn't there a term for it? With like building their shell?
Well, I called it that, all the time. Like it felt like it was like building my shell, to get out there.
You definitely learn. You definitely learn how to move with hits and how to handle them. And then you probably learn how to process quickly in that state where you get hit and then you know how to respond and react, because that's the thing that you'll notice about. This is why full contact fighters can be so dangerous. Like a boxer with 2 years of experience, what makes him so dangerous? If you hit him, he knows how to move, he knows how to react to your punch. Whereas if you hit someone who's a 10-year black belt in a martial art but's never really been punched, they're going to get hit and they're going to get kind of shocked. So there's definitely a skill you build from that.
Plus, if the other fighter sees that you're wavering at all or any you've affected them at all, they'll smell blood, right? And really bring it on.
Absolutely.
So. Exactly. When I see you're tired a little bit is when I try to push the pace. Mm-hmm. When I see, when I'm training younger fighters and I tell them, I say, as soon as you feel like you're tired and you back away, I'm going to go ahead and press the pace. And when you see that I'm tired, you should be thinking press the pace. Even if you're not going to throw punches, at least take a step forward. That makes me think, oh man, I'm tired. Mm-hmm. It makes me even more tired thinking that you're going to try to push on me. You're going to try to lean on me. You're going to try to throw punches at me. Now I got to circle and get away. Yeah. I'm using energy in moments where I didn't want to use energy. That's why I stopped punching. That's why I stopped pushing on you, is I want to take a break. So when the fighter pushes back, you're like, oh man. And that's why you end up with guys that you end up with entertaining fights. Mm-hmm. You know, I've seen some fights where it's like they both look at each other like, okay, we're both tired, let's take a break. That's how it happens in sparring. So I tell people every single time you spar, it doesn't matter if you spar with a fresh guy every round, it will never simulate how hard a fight is. Even when I was getting ready for Gilbert Melendez all 3 times, and I had a fresh guy that came in on me every single round, and they would give me one hard round, and I was like getting exhausted. But that still didn't simulate how hard those fights were. Mm-hmm. Because every time I wanted to rest, my sparring partners would let me rest a little bit because they were tired. You know, I would push them to the point where they were a little bit tired. They're like, okay, look, let's, like they would just slow down. Whereas with fighters, when they see you when you're in the actual cage, it's like, no, there's money involved. Like, I see you tired. No, I'm coming after you. You see, I'm tired. You're coming after me. You know, there's a lot at stake.
What would you say are some of the most important physical attributes for fighting? Like strength, stamina, endurance, flexibility. What would you say are some of the most important things that a fighter physically needs to have in order to perform well?
Number 1 is cardio.
Just stamina.
Yeah, because cardio 100% helps with your mental. And fighting to me is mental.
I feel like you always see an example of that, like with the Ultimate Fighter show, like these guys that like they do like the 2-round things, and if they were ever, I think at one point I think they did do 3 rounds, and it was terrible because the guys would just be all gassed. And I remember seeing that, going like, wow, dude, even as good as all these kids are that you're watching the show, they get to the pro level, they're gonna get mopped up,
and they're so young, which baffles me to believe that they're not in shape.
Right?
Mm-hmm. You know, I mean,
why is that?
Just. To me, honestly, it's bad coaching.
Wow.
They should have coaches that should get you on the treadmill. Now, it's hard to make that adjustment when you're in the when you're on the reality show, because they have you on a set schedule of when you can work out, when you can't. Like, you know.
But I think you would come into that though. Wouldn't you come into the show like?
You would think you would come in with a little bit of, with a little bit of conditioning at least. I mean, but my whole focus has always been in any of my fights is making sure that I was in the best shape I could possibly get in. I mean, we're talking
cardio-wise. You're saying.
Always conditioning, like muscle endurance, and everything I did was high reps, lower weights. I never really lifted heavy weights. I never, like occasionally I did some deadlifts, and that was it.
Who's some of the best examples in the fight game of that? Like, had the best gas tanks?
Cain Velasquez.
Oh yeah, definitely. That doesn't even make sense at his size too.
Yeah.
Just doesn't get tired.
Cain Velasquez, man.
You know, it's funny. This is what you'll notice. Well, at least what I've noticed in MMA is that high-level wrestlers who enter into MMA seem to be the most fit.
Do the best. Yeah.
And I think it's because wrestling teaches that very well. Mm-hmm. Like, you learn that at a very high level in wrestling. You get up to the high level of college wrestling, you have incredible stamina and endurance that it spills over to MMA.
Well, I wouldn't say what it is you're teaching your athlete how to push their mind and their body to the same brink. That's what it is. I wouldn't say they're in phenomenal shape. They just train their body their mind to understand their body can do more.
Oh, I see.
And that's what wrestling is. Wrestling lets you know that when you feel like your body is tired, that trust me, your body can do it. I can't explain it enough to people that when you think you can't keep going, you can keep going. 100% you can keep going. Your mind will quit before your body.
How do you train that in someone? If you're training someone, would you just push them till they cry?
Just more repetition.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like it's all about the repetition. Like when I first ran out and did 400-yard sprints, we were doing full track sprints. I did 4 of them, and I thought I was going to die. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. I went out there with my coach, and he was like, yeah, Javier Mendez. I went out there, and he's like, okay, we're going to do 4. I ran the first one like in a minute 1, minute 2. He's like, okay, 3 more. And I was like, there's no way. I was like, I don't know what I was thinking, that we were only going to run 1, but there was no way. I was like, man, there is no way. My second one was like a minute 30, minute 35, I was like, man, this is horrible. And then, but by the time I got close to the fight, we were doing two lap sprints. So I was doing a whole mile of sprints, so I was doing 880s. So I was doing 2 of those, and I was doing 6 440s and keeping all the times under 125.
Wow.
Yeah.
So full lap would be under 125. So my first full lap, yeah. So we started off with 2 880 sprints, then we did 6 440s, and then he'd have me do a couple bleacher sprints, up and down the bleachers, hop up and down the bleachers, full step up and down, skip every other step, that kind of thing. And then that was, we'd do that, and that was my conditioning workout.
Mm-hmm.
What about strength? Where do you see the biggest or the best application of strength in MMA? Would it be the ability to hold someone, grip strength, back strength,
explosive strength?
Yeah,
it's hard to say. I would say it's more technique.
Okay.
There's never something that says. I don't think there's any one thing I can give you, be like, oh man, that guy's so strong, he won because he was strong. Mm-hmm. I think you win because of the technique. I've trained with some guys that are, 135, 145 pounds, but just phenomenal jiu-jitsu guys, and they feel a lot stronger because they're like backpacks on your back. Sure. If they get to your back, they're not letting go. Yeah. I mean, and it has nothing to do with a whole lot of the strength. It's more of the technique and the positioning of where they're at.
Are there any new techniques out there right now? I know the sport's evolved quite a bit, but are anybody bringing in other modalities into the mix?
Well, I mean, you just watched the other night, right, with Yair Rodriguez hit Korean Zombie with that little upward back elbow, and knocked him out. I mean, that's probably one of the greatest knockouts ever in history, in MMA history. Definitely a weird kind of fluky type of thing, but he had to be willing to throw it, and it was amazing. Landed clean and beautiful. It sucked because Korean Zombie was up on the cards, was going to win the fight, and there was less than a second left, and he got knocked out.
Wow. Yeah. So this is just one more thing to be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, had he got dropped and was able to get up, he would have won. Yeah. That's how crazy that is. The fact crazy. That I was telling producer Dave yesterday when we did the Punk's Opinion, I was like, man, I said, dude, he actually even kind of felt like a zombie. The way he fell was like all his arms went limp. He hit his face, and I was like, man, I feel so bad.
Oh, that's too bad. No, but it's true. It does evolve so quickly. What I'm seeing a lot in like grappling sports is leg locks seem to be just dominating like crazy. Are we going to start to see that spill over in MMA?
You'll see a little bit of it because Bellator has Dylan Dennis who loves to do the leg lock position. He won his first fight with a toe hold. You will see it, but there is a lot of risk involved when you're talking MMA and leg locks, because if you don't get to the proper position fast enough, the guy will be able to squash or smash your legs in and get on top and start punching you. So we saw, I want to say it was Ian Freeman with, I want to say Frank Mir. Where Ian Freeman just annihilated, I want to say Frank Mir with strikes because he kept trying to go for the leg lock it was like one of those feel-good stories because Ian Freeman had just lost his dad that day and found out while he was there for the fight and was able to beat Frank. I want to say it was Frank Mir. But man, it's just very inspirational. But that was a classic case of that's why MMA guys don't really go for leg locks a whole lot. For me, I feel like leg locks, knee bars, those type of things, there's something you got to catch them in transition. You catch them in transition when they're not ready for it, and you're able to lock it in quickly and try and finish it. If you don't get it, you basically kick them back and get away and make space to get back up to your feet or sit up to like another position.
But the thing I love about MMA is that, we've heard so many times spinning kicks, those are just for the movies. They're never going to work in MMA. Dudes started using them, started knocking people out. Yeah. We're not going to, front snap kick to the face. That's movie shit. That's not going to, boom, people started getting knocked out. Spinning backward elbow or back fist. People start getting knocked out. It's like it keeps proving us that you can, if the right fighter can start to incorporate these things.
You got to clear something up for me. So Steven Seagal What is it? What is the story behind that? And like this I don't know if it's an urban myth or whatever with this front kick that he taught Anderson Silva, and I have to know like from somebody that actually knows.
It's
the
all
sport.
it's all for TV, man.
Yeah. Oh, it's bullshit.
I thought so.
It's all
We need
bullshit.
Steven Seagal would be the
No,
champion
he's so
now.
badass. Yeah.
I mean, in reality though, it definitely was something that everybody's body style is different. Anderson Silva was perfect for that. Lyoto Machida used it later again on Randy Couture.
Yeah.
I used it on KJ Noons when I fought him, and it lands. I mean, it does. It works. But with every technique, the setup has to be right. You know, so when you do the setup properly, it doesn't matter who's throwing it. As long as you're setting it up properly, you know, and you're able to throw it clean and crisp, then you have a chance.
Do you see any positions or moves right now that are underutilized that you think if a fighter really focused on, they might have an advantage?
What do you mean?
Like anything. Like, do you see any room for improvement right now? In other words, like I said, hit leg locks. It seems like maybe there's a lot of them in grappling. Is it going to spill over? Do you see anything where I think there could be an advantage if a fighter starts to focus on, you know, more of this particular position? Do you see anything like that, or is it just so complete now that it's so difficult?
I think everyone is for themselves, is whatever works best for you and your body style and your technique.
Excellent.
You know, I mean, there's nothing that I can, like, there's things that I can do that you can't do. There's things that you can do that I can't do. And, you know, someone's always better at something than I am.
Definitely.
I always love talking MMA stuff with you, but I want to talk to you a little bit about the business again and what, how are you announcing, podcasting, running a school, like how are you, and then also training to fight potentially, like how are you managing your time right now?
Pulling my damn hair out.
Yeah. Dude, aren't you even in a movie too?
Yeah, so I did a couple movies over in Asia. I'm actually talking with a couple people right now about me doing some more movies over there. The new Rush Hour 4 is coming out, and they actually had hit me up about potentially working, you know, being on that show as well. So we'll see. There's so many little things and so many things that need to happen for things like that to happen. The time frame has to work. Now that I signed a deal with Viacom, working with them, it's got to work around their schedule. I mean, that's long term. For me, my long term goal is to do exactly what DC's doing. He already understands. I want to say he's making really good money working for Fox. I could see him working into covering more sports, and that's exactly what I want to do. Okay. You know, I love doing.
You'd be great at that, yeah.
But this pod, like your guys' podcast, and me working for them is exactly what I want to do.
Just keep doing that. Keep talking. Keep communicating to people.
Exactly.
Now, are there people like? You mentioned DC, so I imagine he's somebody you follow. Are there other podcasts and announcers that you're paying attention to what they're doing, and how are you evolving your style?
Well, for me, it's easy to just keep doing what we're doing because I'm talking about fighting. Fighting is exactly what we've been talking about for the last hour now. I can talk about this all day long. I've been doing it for 20-something years now. So, and then you mix it with the wrestling, the sports, and the athletes, and people that I know. As far as dealing with, or as far as viewing and talking and seeing what other people do, I do follow Brennan's show because I've been on there a couple times. Brennan Schaub. I'm a huge Rogan fan. I like listening to some of his stuff. What I like with Joe's show is that he tends to bring on people even if they don't agree with his stuff. And he will go ahead and have them on and let them explain.
Sure.
And what I find refreshing, and it's not just because of his show, but I actually have kind of started taking that mentality and my approach to the climate of what we live in now.
Sure.
And just let everyone be them. And just, and sure, maybe you can agree with them, maybe you can't, but just take that approach of like, let them be them and whatever suits them, let them do it their way, and maybe, there are things that I don't agree with, but I tend to just let them just deal with themselves. However they want to do it, hear them out. There are things that I've heard people say, and I'm like, I don't really agree with that. I don't like, I don't understand. But then when they explain it to me, I'm like, you know what? It does make sense. It does make sense on why you feel that way. So, and that I gotta say that I kind of got that a little bit from listening to some of Rogan's shows, some of the people that he's had. I want to say I've talked about this before, that there was a girl on there. I want to say her name was Michelle Kel Felper or something. Anyways, she was on there, and she talked about how she grew up in a church that went around and protested veterans or gay people's marriages and said like, hey, your daughter's or your kid's dead because he was gay, or your kid's dead because they're a lesbian, or your kid was
this the Westboro Baptist Church?
I believe so.
Oh yeah.
So I listened to that one. That was actually the one that got me listening to Rogan at all.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't listen to any of his podcasts. That was one of the first ones I listened to, and I was like, now I like this show. Mm-hmm. Now I will listen to you.
Do you have any plans of having, because we're obviously a fitness and health podcast, but we've had quite a few episodes now that had nothing to do with fitness and health, and that's all by design. We have a lot of other interests, and we like talking to different people, like you're saying. Do you have any interest in doing that as well, where you'll have some episodes that maybe don't have to do with martial arts and MMA that, or other things that you're interested in? Yeah,
so we've had on Tyler Farr, who's a country singer. We've had Jimmy Allen on, who's a country singer as well. So Jimmy Allen right now, I think he's got a top 5 on the billboards for it's called Best Shot. So we had him on. We've had a couple other people that have been on that are not fight related, which I do enjoy. We had Shane Faison on, who does fight tips, but we talked a lot about how he moved from Minnesota and came over from I want to say Minnesota or Minneapolis. He came over from there, and him and his wife started this thing called Fight Tips, and they basically just talk about they basically put together like videos on YouTube. That's how they make their living now. They move out to LA and do the whole deal, and I'm captivated by people that do things that are completely different than what anybody else ever thought they would do. I mean, like when you guys were younger, did you guys think you'd be sitting in the studio right now doing exactly what you're doing? Like sitting here talking to me.
No.
I mean, sure, maybe you guys always had this little interest in, did you used to do bodybuilding competitions, right? Or fitness competitions? Yeah. So like, did you think you'd be sitting here traveling around, like meeting all these people? I mean,
no.
And think about the people that you've met and how they've changed your life on how to live a healthier lifestyle, not just like lifting weights, in the gym, pumping iron, but like living an actual healthier lifestyle.
Yeah.
The things
it's all a bit surreal.
The things you put in your body now is completely different than when we were younger, what we used to think we would put in our body.
Yep.
And so I think about all those things, all the times that I've listened to either whether it's Rogan, whether it's listening to you guys, or whether it's or whether it's Shab, or whatever it is, okay, or just even listening to ourselves. And I have so many meetings and conversations with Scott Coker, the guys from Bellator, even guys from the UFC that I still am friends with over there, and to hear their conversations about how athletes and how the sport and how everything has fully changed and evolved, and the people that I'm still friends with over all these years, it's insane.
Yeah.
And I never thought in a million years that I'd have my own podcast, with Dave and with Sammy. And I never thought in a million years I'd be doing Punk's Opinion and people actually care about what I'm saying. I mean, like, we're getting a lot of traction on those type of things. And I never thought that I'd be sitting in front of the camera, whether it's with you guys right now or even with Bellator. And people are they're clinging on to every little last word that you're saying. But with that, it's no different than when you're talking about kids getting a stripe, there comes more responsibility. You got to be very careful what you say.
Have you gotten any heat? Have you gotten any hate?
Well,
people disagreeing with you and being like, I disagree with your opinion.
Well, when I was with the UFC, yeah, I did. There was something that I had asked. I had asked a question, and to touch on this, and I probably shouldn't get into it too much, but I had asked a question, and I said, because it was right around the time that they were trying to pass for gay marriage to be legal, and I had asked a question and said, hey, do you feel like gay marriage should be legal? And I said, before you answer that, I said, should you be allowed to have more than one spouse? So I just was asking based on, when you change the definition of marriage, does it open up the door for people to say like, well, I want 3 or 4
wives? That's
wives?
a logical question.
It's a logical question. And not just that, but then does it open up the question for people to say that they should be allowed to have more? And then how do you work the tax benefits of that?
Sure.
How do you work the healthcare for that? Like, how do you do these things? And those are all things
so you got heat for that.
Yeah, I got a ton of heat for that. I actually lost a job working for Fox because of that.
Oh, wow.
Really? Yeah, so Fox wanted me to work for them. I was supposed to be there with DC. DC and I were supposed to work together. And they were like, look, it's just too much controversy right there at this moment in this time. And it let me know that like that's kind of around the same time I started listening to Joe Rogan. And I'd heard this whole ordeal with the Baptist church thing. And I was like, she's 100% right. There was moments in there where she was like, I knew it was kind of wrong. I knew I probably shouldn't have been doing it, but that's all I ever knew. And so it made me think about like, she left her family and everyone to do what she felt like was potentially right, to go out there and explore. And I said, you know what it did was it opened my mind to really listen to what other people have to say and understand when they talk to you. Why do you feel that way? And I want to hear without I can't talk to people that are aggressive with it. Like, I'm a fighter. Don't be aggressive with me about whether we're talking politics, whether we're talking taxes. Yeah. Whether we're talking any of these things, just don't be aggressive. Like, let's have a conversation. Let's sit here like we're sitting here right now and talk about it. Yeah. And that made me feel that kind of opened my eyes to like, wow, people will take a question like that and they'll turn it in. And I was just kept asking questions and I kept asking questions. I'm like, I don't feel these things. I don't feel like, I just wanted to know what if it led to something else or other things outside of what you guys are all trying to get approved. How would we handle those situations and those circumstances when they come? And then no one had answers for them, or they did have answers, but you know, it's like, how are we going to get all that stuff passed? Yeah. So when we did that, it put a negative look on me, and I was pretty upset over the whole thing. And I was like, you know what? You need to do something about yourself. You need to do something to change how you look at things, you know, on whether you just listen to more people.
So you put yourself on the other side of it and you said, okay, I'm not going to judge people so harshly. I want to hear what they have to say.
Well, I wasn't judging. Like, there was never a moment where I could look.
Well, you felt judged.
Yeah, I felt judged, and I was like, you can't be that person.
That's
and I felt like I was being judged for just asking a question. Yeah. You know, and and I just when I look back now, and I'm like, man, you can't. You have to listen to what everyone has to offer and what they're saying, and just take it in stride.
Yeah, I learned that lesson a long time ago. I had a client who I love to discuss and debate controversial topics. One of my favorite things to do. It's mentally stimulating. Yes. I enjoy it. And I had this woman that I trained, and she was so effective at how she communicated her opinions and ideas. She was so effective, in fact, that she was rarely do you see someone change someone else's opinion when it comes to religion or politics or stuff like that. But she would do it all the time. And she'd get other people in the gym to kind of consider her opinion. So one day I asked her, I said, how did you get so good at communicating your ideas? And she said, well, what I did is a long time ago is I would form an opinion and I would seek out the opposing opinion with a total open mind, and I would find the best argument for that side. And she said two things would either happen. One, it would strengthen my own opinion because I would know more about the other side and I would be better at my own argument. Or sometimes it would change my mind, in which case I was happy because I realized I was no longer having the wrong opinion. And so I started doing that. I started doing that myself. And what you end up finding is there's definitely assholes and shitty people out in the world, but more often than not, we all kind of want the same thing. People want, you know, good for themselves, good for their families. They have good intentions. So if you hear them out, even though you may disagree with an opinion, you start to empathize a little bit and be like, okay, we have a difference of opinion, but your opinion isn't because you're an evil person. It's because you really think that's the best thing for everybody.
Yes.
And it helps you. It helps a lot. It helps a lot with the conversation.
I really would like to meet your friend, because I have another friend who's exactly like that, who actually helps me all the time. And he's one of my members at my gym. We've been friends for a while now, but he gives me the same outlook, and he asks questions because he's curious, not because like he's trying to prove me wrong.
Sure.
And that's the thing. Like, anytime I say something or anytime he says something, I'll respond back to him with a question because I'm curious, not because I feel like, oh, that's the way it should be.
Sure.
I'm not trying to catch you and like, well, that's what I said. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to I'm curious. I'm asking you a question because I'm curious. I want to know. I want to know why you feel that way. I want to know if you see it potentially my way. If I ask you this question, could you potentially see it my way if you answer the right way?
Well, things are so crazy now that you can't even ask questions sometimes. It's getting really crazy.
Nobody wants other perspectives.
Yeah. Or if you ask a question automatically, oh, how dare you? What do you think? You know, who do you think? It's like, listen, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm exactly like you now. That's exactly how I am. I want to know. I'm not asking you when I talk about racism, when I talk about gay marriage, when I talk about anything that's a hot topic.
Sure.
I want to know. I want to know how you feel and why you feel that way. I want to know. I'm curious. It has nothing to do with whether I believe my way. Look, I could care. Like, I won't even have to tell you how I feel. I just want to know because maybe there's something you're going to say that's going to make me think, you know what, you're right. That's the way I should feel. And I want to know. And it opened up my eyes, I think, in that moment. I had so many people saying that because I was asking the question, that they were offended, that they were upset at me. And, people were actually writing the UFC, and people, because I was with the UFC at the time, they were writing the UFC, and they were writing they were saying that I should be kicked out of the UFC. And I was like, I was just asking a question. I was asking how does this may lead to something else? And, and what are we going to do when it does lead to that something else? I could care less. I think every person that has ever been in a relationship, look, if you want to be in a relationship, be in a relationship. I don't care who you love. It doesn't make a difference to me.
How long ago was that? You got some serious heat from that.
Yeah, that was a while ago. I would say probably
that must have been
2013.
Yeah, I was going to say at least 5 or 6 years ago,
Yeah, it was
right?
2013.
Because now it's not even, nobody even, when it comes to gay marriage, it's not even really a controversial topic anymore. It's legalized.
I don't think it should have ever been a controversial topic. But for me, I was more curious to know, how are you going to stop?
Those are real questions.
Yeah, how are you going to stop somebody from saying, well, I want 2 wives, or I want 2 husbands, or I want 3 husbands, or 3 wives? How are you going to stop that?
Well,
and then when you do, what are we going to do for expense? What are you going to, how are you going to?
My question was always, why the hell do you need to ask, why is the government
Why does the state
sanctioning
have
it
to be
anyway?
involved?
If
Yeah.
it's 2 adults and they
Yeah.
want to have a legal agreement, then it can be any 2 adults, and
Yeah.
who gives a shit? I never understood that.
Yeah, I think because they started getting more, because the government wanted to get more involved in
always.
healthcare,
Oh,
with
yeah.
the healthcare. So then, how are they going to break out the healthcare for?
course.
How are you going to say hey, now I'm going to have your husband and your husband,
Right.
or and what happens if you marry someone that has kids, and it's moving on, it just opened up.
You
the
just
whole,
wait. The
yeah.
more the government gets involved with healthcare, pretty soon they're going to start telling you what you can eat,
Yep.
what you can't eat. Your activity levels. They'll start telling you everything, and they'll be justified because they're paying for your healthcare.
That's I've always felt that less government is better.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter if you're conservative or Democrat, whatever it is. I've always felt that the less people are involved in your life, let you live your own lifestyle, the better. Go ahead. I mean, you marry 10 people. I don't care. If you guys all want to do it, go right ahead.
Yeah.
Just don't ask the government for help.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing. Just take care of yourselves. Yeah. And I think when everyone started moving out west from the east, all they wanted was a plot of land and to live their own life. And now somewhere along the line, we have decided that the government wants we want the government to pay for our health care. We want the government to pay for our roads. We want the government to pay for all these things, right? Whether it's, you hear people when Obama got elected, they wanted people to pay for their gas and their cell phones. And I don't understand how that all came about. You should want to do everything on your own. And there's nothing that makes somebody more strong than being able to have a job and pay for themselves. Mm-hmm. You create character that way.
It's funny, that attitude that you have about wanting to be autonomous and take care of yourself and have the freedom to dictate your future. A lot of that is learned through hard training. I notice when I train kids, for example, and they start to learn the lesson of work, sacrifice, result. Work, sacrifice, result. And if they don't put in work, they don't get the result. Mm-hmm. It starts to bleed into the rest of their life. And you learn that. You learn that with hard training. No, I need to put in the work. Mm-hmm. I need to put in the effort. It's the only way I'm going to get what I want. I'm not going to be able to rely on other people. Even if other people say they're going to do things for me, It's just not the same.
Well, I'll get into it. That's why I feel like wrestling is so important. Okay. Is that to me, wrestling is an individual sport, but the team sport, sure, it's great, but I can turn around and tell my parents, man, so-and-so missed that thing. That's why we lost.
Sure.
Well, if I go out there and get stuck, I went out there and made a mistake. Mm-hmm. Okay. I got pinned because I made a mistake because of me. Or if I got tech fouled, probably because I got outworked. Someone just out-hustled me and outworked me because I probably wasn't in very good shape. You can't blame anyone but yourself.
Forces ownership.
Exactly. So when you get into these conversations, the whole thing always falls back on it. No one's going to take care of you but you.
Yeah.
That's it. So why are we relying on the government to do anything for us? And that's
Plus
always
they do a bad job.
That's always going to be my take. Mm-hmm. And not to mention just the way that they waste money. Why am I allowing them to put any of our money, our tax-paying money that we pay to them, into anything other than just maybe potentially fixing our roads?
Yeah.
Just do that.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir, man.
You can't.
Echo
The school
chamber,
system. We all know the school systems are broken.
Yeah.
Majority of people send their kids to private schools or charter schools, or a lot of these the CEOs and CFOs and major companies, Facebook, they're all sending their money to the charter school systems.
Yeah.
They're not donating money to the government systems anymore.
No.
Because all their kids go to the charter schools. All their kids go to the private schools.
Yeah,
whether it's Catholic schools or Christian schools or charter schools or whatever, It's
true. And you work with kids all the time, so you can see what works and what doesn't work quite a bit.
Well, I see the kids that go to the private school. I see the kids that go to the public school. Big difference in personalities.
Really?
Way big difference.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I've got nieces that I've got my family. So, and obviously, let me clear the air. My family owns a charter school. They started their own. It's called STEM Charter up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Oh, did they? Okay.
So they're considered one of the best charter schools in all of Northwest. So, in the state of Idaho, they are the best. So, but it's all hands on. There's I want to say that like in 95% of the classes they don't have chairs, so the kids have to stand all day.
Oh, that's right.
And they talk, they just communicate, and they go from station to station doing their projects. Wow. They do it either in a group setting of 2 or they do it in a group setting of like 5 to 6 kids. I mean,
How do you see that translate into the kids that you're teaching and stuff? What do you
well, with the kids?
What do you see?
The kids that they go to the private schools, or the kids that they just I feel like their attention span is a little bit greater. They also seem like that they have a sense of other kids' feelings involved. Like they care, like, oh no, you can go ahead of me. Oh no, you can go ahead and you go first. Or you drill them. Do you want to go first? No, I'll go first. Okay, you go first. Like that conversation happens amongst kids that are 5 and 6 years old that go to the schools that
foster that. And it's you're seeing it in the private schools, a lot of it, because it's the market pressures. A private school succeeds, it does well. If it doesn't, it fails and it shuts its doors.
Yep.
Public schools just get more funding typically because they'll say, oh, our test scores are low, our performance is low, we need more money. Private school doesn't get, if their performance goes down, they're not doing a good job, they shut their doors. So there's a strong motivation for them to do what really works, and you get a lot of hands-on is what you see.
What I don't like is that we reward, the government rewards schools or districts or whatever it is for spending all their money. And that's what drives me crazy, is you guys are spending all of our money, and because if they don't spend all the money,
they don't get the budget.
Then
they
say next year, like, "Oh, you didn't need all that money, so now we're not going to give you as much."
It's a really crazy feedback.
And I'm like, how does that work? Like now they're just throwing money away on things that they don't need, and they're not actually making the schools any better. If you look at the middle schools in the United States, the elementary schools are not bad. The high schools, they're not bad. The middle schools are like the armpit of America. They're horrible. I mean, you look around in the Bay Area in the middle schools, they're all like 3s and 5s. I don't think there's a school over 7. In the ranking in their ranking system, they're horrible. The middle schools are garbage. But then the elementary schools, you'll get some schools that are 9s and 10s. And you get to the high schools, they'll be like 8s and 9s. But it's very rare to find high schools that are 10s. And if you do, let me just tell you, the housing around that area, you're talking $2 million houses and up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean,
so you're going to do podcasts on these topics? Because I think you like these topics.
Yeah.
I love these topics. But I mean,
these
helps.
are third rails, bro. You're touching a lot of the third rails.
It helps the fact that, like, my family, like I said, they started a charter school. They got a sponsor. They basically got grants from a company called the Albertsons Group. So the Albertsons helped pay for the full funding. They started off their school. I want to say it was kindergarten through 4th grade. And within 1 year, Albertsons hit them up and said, hey, we would like to give you a bigger grant if you'll go all the way to 8th grade.
Oh, good deal.
So they extended it to 8th grade. And their program is successful, and their school is the #1 school in all of Idaho, and like one of the top schools, I want to say 2 or 3 in all of the Northwest.
That's great.
And it's phenomenal. Now they moved into high school. It took them 2 years more because they just didn't have the curriculum written out for it yet. But then my uncle, because he started it with his wife, my aunt and uncle did, and they brought out the curriculum for high school, and now their high school kids are phenomenal.
That's great.
I mean, but they're not graduating in a huge class, though. They're graduating like 5 kids, 8 kids. Because, most parents, because it's a new school, they're not going to say, yeah, my kid's a freshman, let's move him there, not knowing how it's going to all pan out.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's definitely a hard school, and some of the kids were so far behind. The parents got frustrated that their kids were so far behind that they actually pulled their kids out. Like, oh no, it's just too much homework. They're like, yeah, but we're trying to get your kid caught up to standards. Your kid's way behind, like in just normal standards. And so the parents are like, yeah, well, he doesn't need to do that. He's got this and he's got that. And
well, that's hard. You can't control that,
and you can't control that.
Yeah.
So, and it's upsetting. Like, my whole focus would be, if I had kids, my whole focus would be to make sure that my kids are educated. I mean, there's nothing more important. Not basketball, not football. Nothing else is more important. Now, sure, your kids should be active outside. I agree 100%. But those things are not as important.
You want to have a family one day?
Yeah, one of these days.
Yeah.
We'll figure it
A lot
out.
of kids or a little bit of kids?
We'll figure it out.
I see you having a lot of kids, man.
Really? I'm 40 years old, man. It's a little late.
That's all right, dude. You can make kids.
Either that or you already feel like you have a lot of
Triplets.
kids.
I'm
In a
not-
sense, you kind of have a lot of kids already.
Yeah, almost, right? I think that's why some teachers don't have kids. They only have like one. It's because they already have 40 kids, every 30 or 40 new kids every semester or every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I definitely, I'm okay with adopting though.
Yeah.
That's my big thing. I
That's
mean,
awesome.
like, I think for me, I'd like to have a girl and a boy, and I'd want them in that order: the girl first and the boy second. You know, I think because then I think the boy ends up taking advice or learning how to treat a woman.
That's a good point.
If it's his older sister,
That's a good point.
He understands like how you should treat. You know, like if you're the older brother, you don't always treat your younger sister the right way. Sure, you look out for her and you protect her, but I think to actually learn how to respect a woman, being the younger brother would probably be better.
Oh, that's an
Yeah.
interesting theory.
Yeah. I like that theory.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
That's
Makes
interesting.
sense.
Well, shit, man. It's always a good time with you, bro.
Yeah, we're done already.
Love it.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Always a
Like
good
an hour and a
time,
half
man.
or so, yeah.
And I think we're supposed to. Are you having us on your show, or what are we doing?
Yeah, so I think what we're gonna do right now is I was just told that we're gonna flip it, and basically I'm gonna bring in Sammy and then Dave, and we're gonna try to make some space and do something where we share a mic or something. We'll figure it out.
All right.
Sweet.
And then we'll just chat with you guys about what you guys are doing.
Excellent.
You know, and then
That's it.
This is it, man. This is what we do.
Right on,
I mean,
man.
think about it, guys.
I know. This is our job.
How crazy is this?
It's a trip.
We talk about it every day.
We do.
It's
We
just
do.
so much fun. I mean, I'm enjoying every second of it.
Yeah.
I could sit in here all day. Like we
It
could
feels like nothing.
yeah. Wish we'll be here for another 2 hours.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All
I'm gonna
right,
take a
guys.
piss.
Thanks, man.
Right on, Josh.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.